Global spending on edge computing is expected to reach $317 billion by 2026. The increasing demand for low latency processing, AI-driven applications, and resilient infrastructure at the edge drives this growth. My name is Paul Nashawaty, and I'm the practice lead for the app dev practice at theCUBE Research. Today, I'm joined by Bruce at StorMagic. Bruce, how you doing?
Good, thanks for having me, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and about StorMagic?
Sure, yeah, my name is Bruce Kornfeld. Like you said, I'm Chief Product Officer for StorMagic, which means I'm responsible for our product management as well as our engineering teams. And for those of you that aren't familiar with StorMagic, we're all about helping our customers run mission critical applications and store their local data at the edge. And I think we'll be talking a lot about the edge today, so I'm quite excited.
Yeah, me too. It's a very exciting topic because it's top of mind for a lot of people. As we were seeing, with the research I cited right up front, $317 billion by 2026, growing 17% CAGR. And this is an incredibly fast growing, applications are growing at the edge. We're seeing driving the increase in need for real-time processing, those AI workloads that I mentioned, and distributed infrastructure really kind of hitting the edge as a critical point. A lot of times, historically, the edge was using whatever was available just to kind of keep things running. No longer the case anymore. There's definitely growth. So Bruce, I'd love to get your perspective on this trend because, this growth in the market and the spend that's happening and the importance I see at the edge for compute growing, what's your take?
Yeah, so at StorMagic, we see the same thing. We see, edge is a really exciting place right now. There could still be lots of different small definitions of edge, but basically, if you think of it simply, the edge is not the data center, it's not the cloud, it's basically everything else. But if you think of it this way, edge is where data is generated. Typically, data is not created in a cloud or in a data center, it's created somewhere else and brought there. The edge is where the action is. And with all that's been going on in the industry lately, that's where all the growth is. Like you just cited those market share, those data growth charts. It's unbelievable. And so what's driving it is the economy is moving so much faster than it did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, that there's not time anymore. In many applications, there's not time to do everything in the cloud or in a data center. So like you were saying, like in the past, you might have had some old servers sitting around at the edge, or maybe some desktops or laptops that were powerful enough to do what you need. But edge computing has become a real business problem that many of our customers are trying to figure out is what do we do? What's the right infrastructure? What applications do we run there? Some are still good in the cloud, but there are some applications that you can't handle the latency, or the cloud has become too expensive, or we can't suffer any downtime. So we got to have things running reliably locally. So edge has become a really exciting place, and it just continues to grow.
No, absolutely. And when we look at it, we see that the need, you were talking about, that modernization approach, we see that there's a definite need for understanding like a simplified high availability solution for the edge. And HCI tends to be a focus, right? Where you can integrate software, storage, virtualization, networking, and management all into these cost-effective edge solutions. Now, one would argue or question, why is this, topic important on an app dev angle? Well, when we look at that, the burst capacity that you see for applications at the edge, we see that organizations are looking to address 66% of enterprises where they're prioritizing infrastructure modernization for distributed environments. Can you tell a little bit about how StorMagic can really talk to this and like address that, the deployment of an HCI solution that really helps with the acceleration of that burst capacity at those locations?
Yeah, if you could, I'd like to address one other thing as well, which is the application side. Is one piece of innovation that we're living through right now. And I know any discussion can't be complete unless we talk about AI, but I'll keep it brief. But that is a real example of innovation that's happening around the world. And it doesn't all need to be, and it shouldn't be all in the cloud anymore. Making real-time decisions in new, innovative ways on site, at a remote site, at an edge site, is starting to be delivered and giving end user companies and organizations an advantage in their market. So there's a lot of activity around a major application driver for Edge is AI. And what are we going to do? It's not fully rolled out yet. There's some pockets here and there, but that is definitely an area that we see a lot of discussion. A lot of IT teams are trying to figure out how do we implement AI processes at the edge and not wait to send everything to the cloud. On the HCI front, it is becoming a pretty clear winner at the edge because it's just simpler. Edge environments typically don't have IT staff. They don't have people to look after equipment. Everything has to be able to be managed remotely, from installing software, updating software, installing new applications, application management. All of it has to happen somewhere else. So at the edge, you just literally have people that are not experienced. It could be a store clerk. It could be a manufacturing engineer that doesn't know much about IT, that just take the server, you plug the power cord in, plug the Ethernet cable in, and then everything else is done remotely. So simplicity is really important. And that's what HCI delivers. It's everything's in a server, 2, maybe 3. You can run all of your applications. You don't need IT staff. Costs are usually a lot less than the traditional 3-tier architecture because all of your serving, virtual server, virtual storage, virtual switching, everything's in the same boxes. So it just becomes simpler, and in many cases, a lot less expensive to deploy the infrastructure to run the applications at the edge.
Absolutely. And then, we were talking about that kind of modernization approach, right? We were talking about the focus of that. When I talk to organizations, I talk in the context of past, present, and future, right? And then there's a lot of organizations that are looking at encapsulation of their existing environments because they don't want to break something that's working, right? But they also have to do this in the most cost-effective way. And of course, when we look at ways to do that, you can take a siloed environment, a heritage environment, and encapsulate that into a virtualized environment, right? But there's a cost and a licensing concern that a lot of organizations are looking at. In fact, what we're seeing in our research is 76% of IT decision makers are exploring alternatives for virtualization solutions due to licensing costs and price concerns. What does that mean from a market challenge? What does that mean from a StorMagic's perspective? And how would you recommend clients to kind of look at that as an option to modernize their approach at the edge or anywhere?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you were purposely avoiding the elephant in the room, but I'll throw it out there, which is server virtualization has gotten very expensive just in the last year due to what Broadcom's done with VMware products. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's amazing what they've done. Broadcom has some very, very smart financial planners because their business continues to grow. Market share goes up and their profits are up and their stock price is up. So good for them. So they've taken care of a subset of the market, which is typically the top 1,000 or 2,000 accounts. But everyone outside of that, if you're a smaller enterprise, medium enterprise, an SMB, no longer can you really afford the VMware infrastructure. So yeah, virtualization has gotten very expensive. And what we see is customers are frantically searching for alternatives, alternative virtualization solutions. And that's the space that we're in. Obviously, that's what we do. So we've released a product in the last about a year ago called SVHCI. It's a full stack HCI solution that is based on, we didn't invent a new hypervisor. We're using something that's pretty well accepted in the industry because millions and millions of installations use it, which is KVM. So it's a Linux-based KVM hypervisor that we've taken and we've added it to our virtual storage solution that we've been selling for 10 or 15 years. So it's a very stable environment. It's well trusted, well used, and we're able to save customers a lot of money over VMware, in the upwards of 60 to 70% just on software licensing costs alone. And there's a lot of activity in the market around this. So I'm sure you all follow it. There's probably people listening here that are nodding their heads like, yeah, I'm dying to find a way to move off of VMware, but I need it to be reliable. I need it to be easy, and I need to save money. And that's the space that we're in.
Yeah, and that's whether it's VMware or virtualization in general, alternatives are definitely, like I mentioned, and to align to your comment, the research we're seeing is there's the ITDMs are looking at solutions. They're also looking at ways to, as you alluded to, which is simplify, reduce the complexity, but also skill gap issues, right? They don't want to have another platform that they don't know how to use. They want the big green button to make things work. And that's one of the things when I talk to CIOs, I hear quite frequently is modernization is their number one initiative, and the two barriers that they have with modernization efforts is complexity and skill gap issues. And it sounds like your solution, for these alternatives that are out there, it may be a viable solution for people to look at as a way to think about their applications for encapsulation, but also because I talk about past, present, and future, also for potentially not just virtualization, but also maybe containerization as well.
Yeah, so you've thrown a lot out there, but I'll say a couple of things to peel away. One is the easy button thing, right? And Linux and KVM has been around forever. So why haven't end users deployed pure Linux-based systems using KVM over the last 20 years? And the answer is it's complicated. You need an engineering staff that knows what they're doing to be able to make all those open source packages work together, and then to maintain it and update it. It is difficult. So VMware has done a brilliant job over the last 20, 30 years in making it easy. But now that the KVM has matured over the years, we can offer that simplicity, but we're wrapping it with all the management tools that customers would expect. They don't have to install Linux OS and all the different layers and components. The way we've built ours, it's one stack. They get the hypervisor, the virtual networking, the virtual SAN, all gets installed together. You're up and running in under an hour. And in the KVM world, those of you that have tried, you know that it's not going to take an hour to get a full KVM solution running on your own. So we've definitely hit that button about make it super easy to install and super easy to manage. The other thing I'd say about skill set and learning is, yeah, this stuff can be difficult, but if you make it so that the products are familiar to the IT staff, it's going to be a much easier transition. So that's another area that we did. We obviously made the usage of virtualization as similar feeling to people that are familiar with VMware. So there's really no learning curve. You create a virtual machine, you map it to some storage, you pick your virtual network settings, and away you go. So we've made it super, super, super easy to do that. And the other thing I'll just throw in is about mission critical, because edge is no longer a place where you can have outages. Companies are running their operations expecting uptime. They cannot have a store down for even 15 minutes. So uptime is really important, and getting that cluster simple high availability isn't easy. And there's another area that StorMagic is very focused on. So if a server fails, everything fails over, applications keep running. So that's well thought through and well architected as well.
So let's talk about that, because I think that's a big part of the story, right? So we talked about the software, we talked about the applications. A lot of times at the edge, as we were talking with this growth, we see that the change at the edge is also on the infrastructure side. And, there's a demand or an understanding of what's happening in the space. And we see that the global edge server market, is expected to surplus $15 billion by 2028. This is basically driven by the need for compact, high-performance compute at the edge, and making it for power-efficient platforms and short-depth platforms that are ideal for things like 5G, IoT, and enterprise applications, as we were talking about. I do realize that you have and based on a recent briefing that we had, you have a partnership in place that allows for this with HPE and with Supermicro and such. But these partnerships are really powerful, because when we look at what organizations are doing at the edge, it is about the end goal of getting the applications and everything running operationally efficient, but they have to have the right infrastructure. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so traditionally, a lot of customers have tried to emulate their data center server infrastructure at the edge from a hardware perspective and a software perspective, and that just doesn't work, because most edge-based virtualization solutions were designed for the data center. So they were designed for big, massively scalable serving environments and storage environments. We've been very focused on small. So all we do is we make sure our software is designed to run really well in small environments. So there are some features that absolutely aren't needed. Customers don't need VCF at the edge. It's way overkill. So at StorMagic, we're very focused on our product, SVHCI, to be really tight and feature perfect. I will say feature perfect. I haven't used that one before. Feature perfect for the edge. That's what we're designed for. Along with that is the hardware side, like you bring up. It's like back in the day, okay, I run 2U servers or 4U servers in my data center. Let's just go do those at the edge also. Well, it can work. Of course, there's 1U servers, but typically at the edge, you don't even have racks. Most of our customers, yeah, maybe you have a mini rack, but that 19-inch rack, 1U, 2U thing doesn't really fly much anymore at the edge. They're looking at microservers and smaller form factors because they don't have the space for it and they don't need it. So our partners like HPE, Lenovo, Supermicro, like that you mentioned, we did a press release with them recently about some validations we've done with their hardware. We're working with Simply Nook, just smaller form factors that are perfect for the edge, but because AMD and Intel have done amazing things over the last few years with CPU processing and keeping power realistic, you can deploy a pretty impressively powerful server in a smaller form factor. So we're seeing a lot of that at the edge, is that form factors matter. You can't sacrifice performance, but getting into smaller form factors is really important.
Absolutely. And, I love to, carry the conversation. I know we can speak for hours on this. I know we both are kind of passionate about this. It's our area of interest. There's a lot here to talk about, right? There's a lot to think about, regardless of where let's say an organization is on their journey. Where would, an organization go to learn more about, what they can do at the edge, maybe through a StorMagic solution, or just in general on how to like just become educated on what the best solution is? Because like we touched on a number of things, whether it's skill gap, whether it's complexity, whether it was tech stack and tech debt, all of that matters and all of that needs to be taken into consideration. And a lot of times organizations are paralyzed by just not moving because there's so much to think about. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I would say, well, one thing I would say is this: I'm glad that I am not a CIO or an IT director because you guys have hard jobs. It is hard. There's so many different ways to deploy applications in a data center, but now at the edge as well. So there's a lot of choice. There's a lot of options. Everyone's going to say something differently. So you've got a very hard job to do. One thing I would say is there's a lot of industry chatter about best practices and what other people have done. So I've become a bigger and bigger proponent of our good friend ChatGPT or other AI tools. Go see what your peers are doing. Go do some research in that way. But of course, we would love you to come talk to StorMagic. So an easy way to find us and find all of our thoughts on this topic would just be stormagic.com/SVHCI. SVHCI, yeah. And we've got lots of tools there, not just all about StorMagic. We've got industry thoughts. We've got analyst reports and analyst papers that you can search on as well, so you can get an unbiased views as well.
No, that's great. And that's exactly what the audience needs to understand. Is just educate yourself, understand it, and where to go. Bruce, I want to thank you for your time today, your insights and perspective of this market and these challenges. It really does matter. I think the audience needs to just kind of get it and understand. And these are just points of education for the audience to learn. I want to thank the audience for attending. There's a lot here to unpack, to think about. It's not as simple a simple decision to kind of move from one platform to another, or from one server to another, or just architectures in general. But I do recommend you doing the education and learning about this information and learning more about it from the StorMagic site, or you can come to theCUBE research as well. Thank you for your time today and have a great day.